The Maine coast is famous for its lighthouses, and keeping them in ship-shape condition is no small task.
207's Beth McAvoy has the story of some dedicated volunteers who've been working to restore one of those lighthouses on Saco Bay. Hey,
That's right. Volunteers called the Friends of Wood Island Lighthouse have been working for close to 2 decades to restore that lighthouse. I went out with them last week to check it out.
On any given Tuesday, if the seas are obliging, volunteers take a quick boat ride from Biddeford Pool to Wood Island. A half-a-mile walkway leads them to the tower that served as a beacon for sailors since 1839. Volunteers called the Woodchucks are working to get the island ready for the summer tour season.
When I fish out there, I still use the lighthouse as a guide.
Oh, for sure. The maritime history of Maine is significant, but we relied upon shipping and still rely upon shipping for movement of goods. So it still goes beyond the recreational aspects of boaters here. And it's actually now, it's become iconic.
The Coast Guard owns the property and maintains the light that shines 12 miles out to sea.
This building was literally falling down.
From the furniture inside to the shingles outside, the Friends of Wood Island have been working since 2003 to restore this property.
It's about the history, and it's also inspiring just the people that know so much about what happened here.
Technology may have replaced lighthouse keepers, but these volunteers work to keep the history of the place alive.
It is the history of this area. I mean, lighthouses are what is emblematic of Maine, if you will.
If the lighthouse could talk, it might have several tales to tell, but one of George Brunn's favorites is of the last rescue that took place on Wood Island, the rescue of 2-year-old Tammy Burnham.
Tammy's parents were the keepers of the house in the early 1960s. And in November of 1960, Tammy woke up and she had a fever and she was very ill. And they thought maybe she had appendicitis.
Tammy's father radioed the Coast Guard for help.
And they sent 2 young 19-year-old Coast Guardsmen to row over and pick up Tammy. Well, unfortunately, it was a fierce, fierce storm, and you couldn't even see the landing from where the 36-footer was standing. And they rowed over and they put Tammy in the boat, and wasn't very long before the boat swamped. And so one of the Coast Guardsmen was in the water holding Tammy over his head, bouncing up and down in the waves.
The 2 Coast Guardsmen and Tammy were in the water for more than 40 minutes before they were rescued.
So eventually, Tammy was taken in and successfully brought to the local hospital, and she did not have appendicitis, and she did recover. And she still works in town here, and her family is still comes out to the lighthouse whenever they can.
Dozens of other rescues have taken place since the original lighthouse was built here in 1808. Among the harrowing tales is one story of a spirit that supposedly still haunts the island.
We had a murder-suicide that took place out here on the island back in the 1890s. Not at the lighthouse, but it involved the lighthouse keeper.
Thomas Henry Orcutt was the lighthouse keeper.
He was consulted by the murderer as to what he should do. And so he said, you need to go back and turn yourself in. But he didn't. The lighthouse is supposedly haunted. Supposedly, the ghost has said, I didn't mean to do it.
Richard Parsons has combed through 2 centuries of history to write the book on Wood Island Lighthouse.
My favorite stories today, at least, might change tomorrow, revolve around the animals, pets that were living here. The most famous was a dog named Sailor, who he came out here as a puppy and followed the lighthouse keeper around as he rang the bell welcoming ships, and eventually Sailor learned how to ring the bell himself.
Sailor gained fame as the fog bell ringing dog and was featured in newspapers across the country and as far as England.
We're just so connected to everything in our past, and I think when we lose sight of that, we lose sight of really who we are.
Wood Island Lighthouse kept mariners safe for decades, and now volunteers are safeguarding its history.
If you live anywhere within this greater area, you're you become familiar with it and you rely on it. It's somewhat like an old friend.
One more great story I learned was that of the Roach family. They were the keepers in 1968. And one morning, Catherine Roach says to her young son, she notices that he's eating his breakfast very quickly. She said, "What's the hurry?" He said, "I got to go out and play with the big black dog." She says, "We don't have a big black dog." So this goes on for a couple of days. Finally, she follows him down to where he's playing. Turns out that dog, that black dog, was actually a seal that was swimming ashore to play with Jimmy and their other dogs. According to Richard Parsons, that same seal continued to come back over the span of several keepers to the island.
It's amazing the number of great stories that are generated on those lighthouses, considering there was hardly anybody there.
It's true. It's really true.
Oh, great story. Thanks,
Thanks,
Beth.
Beth.